All right, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome back to the Move podcast. Joined by JB Hager down there in Austin, Texas. Mr. George Hincapie with it looks like a little bit of a new setup there in Greenville. What's the lighting? What's happening here?
I'm kicking it up a notch for 2023. We
Good.
got Bolchka sent me a new lighting setup. I got new internet. I'm ready to go. I'm trying to be the team player here.
His microphone's working.
We've been at this. He's not one of his fancy friends' houses in a mountain town with like AirPods and et cetera. We've been at this for a while, George.
I know.
And it looks like who's the kids coming in? What's going on?
Yeah, come over here. Zoe's showing me his Strava time up Paris Mountain. He just got back from a bike ride. Say hi to everybody.
Hey, Zoe, what's up?
Guys?
Look at that national champion jersey.
Hey, nice.
Hey, shouldn't you be in school? Isn't it Friday?
Teacher work day today. They have a 4-day weekend.
Nice.
Wow. So that means extra training. All right. And over there in Madrid, as it has been forever, and it will be in 2023, the Wizard, Johan. We are talking today about, the 2023 season and really try to talk about it as much as we can fit in. Obviously the classics, the Grand Tours, the World Championships, and then all of the stuff that we sort of learned through the off season that we found interesting. So we'll recap all of that. Boys, thanks for joining me. Today's show brought to you by Zwift. Y'all been checking my Strava? Because I've been on Zwift a lot for me. G?
Okay, I haven't.
Cool. Thank you.
I haven't been checking your Strava.
Thank you so much.
But I did. I have seen our numbers increasing every week on the Zwift. We do Wednesday rides, and it's just been a lot of fun.
And I've been traveling a little bit, so I've missed the last few Wednesdays. But other than that, man, I'm a Zwift and mofo. I'm on the bike, and George has been sick, so I'm taking this opportunity to maybe claw back a little bit of the deficit. But check this out: 18,000 of y'all have joined us on Zwift for We Do Wednesday from 70 different countries. We've all ridden over 150,000 miles. By the way, almost 80% of you who start a We Do Wednesday finish it. This isn't unless you're George, it's not some hammer fest. Zwift absolutely makes indoor riding and training fun. By the way, they got the new Hub Direct Drive Trainer is back in stock and selling like crazy. Head on over to Zwift.com for a free trial and try out more. Again, that's Zwift, ZWIFT.com for a free trial. Also today, brought to you by Joovv. Been a minute since we talked about Joovv. That's JOOVV. Red light therapy is something that I've been playing with for years now. Joovv sent me a unit years ago. I keep it in the house. I use it religiously. Look, don't take it from me. Look it up. I mean, the science speaks for itself. George, I believe you also have a Joovv unit as well. But it is science. Yeah, you digging it?
I love it. My wife stole my portable Joovv this morning for her office, so lost that. But I still got the big unit in my gym and use it all the time.
Well, that's not what this is what wives do. Okay, because this like Anna, I said that's mine. She says no, it's ours. Okay. Anyways, don't take it from us. All this stuff is scientifically proven. Better athletic performance, faster muscle recovery, reduced pain and inflammation, enhanced sleep, and so much more. Again, I've been playing around with it forever, and it absolutely works. Head on over to Joovv. Again, that's JOOVV.com/TheMove. Joovv.com/TheMove. Use the code THEMOVE. Special offer. Again, Joovv.com/TheMove. All right, let's get into it. I've been seeing on the interwebs and the socials. A lot of these boys are down. A lot of these athletes are down in Australia for the Tour Down Under, which starts this Sunday, Johan. Already. I remember, by the way, anybody down in Australia listening to the show and going to go out to the race. That's a cool race. I mean, it's hotter than hell in Adelaide at that time, but I remember going the few times that I went. And you never know what to expect when you go that far for a bike race. Are these, what are the crowds going to be like? How is the public, are they into cycling? Dude, that race is huge. It was always such a fun time down there. And the reception was always so cool, not just for our team, but for everybody.
And the first year it's back, after COVID is Australia had really strict rules on COVID, and we all know how Australians hadn't been able to go back to their country, and now the whole peloton is back. I think it's a really special race to start off the season. Once you're there, I think it's really nice. The problem I see for teams is that, getting there, then adapting to a completely different time zone, and then coming back, having to adapt to colder weather, and again, jet lag. So I've seen that most of the teams haven't sent their A teams there, but basically guys who really want to race there and be really good at the very beginning of the season. And I think you can hardly have any better preparation in terms of race rhythm than the Tour Down Under.
Yeah, not only that, but the hotel is the same all week long. A lot of riders can go there. Some of them go a week, 2 weeks before the race to try to adapt to the warmer temperatures. The food is great. Like Lance said, the atmosphere is awesome. And yes, it takes it out of you going there and coming back. In fact, coming back to the States after going to Australia was the worst jet lag I think Lance and I has ever experienced. It took
you want your ass kicked. You want some jet lag ass whooping. Go to Australia and back.
Yeah,
it's funny. It's funny you bring that up, George. It's what we haven't really ever talked about this, but it's the fact that you stay in one hotel the whole time. Like y'all are probably listening, going, and like at the U.S. Open, they stay in one hotel the whole time. At Augusta, they stay in one house the whole time. I mean, and it sounds like nothing, but I tell you, as an athlete that's used to going to races, and to say you race 40 to 60 days a year, that's probably on in a normal scenario, 40 to 60 different nights in a different hotel, a different bed, a different pillow, different food, different everything. And it's funny, like as a selling point, and I only remember one other race where we did that, Johan, you'll remember well, Tour Burgos. It's like, oh, you got to go all the way to Australia. Ooh, it's early season. Ooh, but you get to stay in the same hotel the whole time. Like that sounds like nothing. And then all of a sudden riders go, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm in. Like it's just, once you finally get there, it's just so convenient.
Yeah, I agree. You guys, something and then no disrespect to the Tour Down Under. It does seem to be growing. And then of course the COVID setback, but how serious of a race mindset are the riders, or do they see this as camp? Let's get fit. Let's do some racing. We're going to go where it's warm. Or is it serious? This
cycling, JB, I mean, before, yes, lots of people went there and said, okay, we're going to smoothly get into it. I'm talking about 10 years ago. The last 5 years, you show up at a race and you are 90%, which, would be plenty of, but you're in trouble. You're going to suffer in every single race. Every single race is so I mean, that's why guys race a lot less, but when they race, the whole peloton goes full out. And I'm sure that the Tour Down Under will be no different.
And let's not forget about the Australians, that we have an Australian Pro Tour team, Australian national team, and this is their world championships. I mean, these guys are super fit for this race, so that ultimately makes the race even harder.
Does the points and relegation come into play? Is it being, a race like this being more important?
It's going to be important, but let's say all these guys that have now a World Tour license or now it's called World Team license. They're okay for the next 3 years, and they're good. Most of the guys who were in trouble last year, they woke up at the beginning of the year and said, "Oh, we better get our stuff together because we may be in trouble." And most of the guys who were in trouble stayed in trouble. Mainly Israel and Lotto, right? But no, at this point, I don't think they're not thinking about that. Maybe like for example, if you look at Lotto, which is now called Lotto Destiny, it's not anymore Lotto Soudal, Lotto Destiny. They've actually decided to not go because they are in a position, both Lotto Soudal and Israel. They are now second division teams, and they have access to all the big races, but they're not obligated to go, which is not a bad situation to be in. And so they've decided they're not going, but at the same time, Caleb Ewan will race, and he will race on the national team. So it's a great situation for them, because if Caleb Ewan wins a few stages, which is very possible, they get those points from that race, although they're not present at the race.
So ultimately, all this talk about, you know, the battle for the last two spots of the Pro Tour didn't end up being such a horrible thing for Israeli Cycling Academy and Lotto, because they still get guaranteed spots to the Grand Tour races, which we all know is the most important for these teams anyway.
Yes, but it's only for 1 year. So every year they have to prove themselves again, and they will need to make sure that they finish first and second in the second division teams, which, you know, the competition is there. There's other teams that want to move up. So for year one, they're fine. Year 2 and 3, they'll have to push.
That's interesting about Caleb Ewan. That's surprising that you race for the national team. Of course, you know, it's cycling, so the rules are all kind of all over the place, as always. But you're right, George. I mean, you have, and of course, just last week we saw the Australian National Championship. So you have some of these athletes on both the men's and women's side that this is arguably one of the biggest days of the year for them to race for their national championship. Seems strange to race for one in the wintertime for most people. But so they're coming into a race like this, you know, hotter than a $2 pistol, and dang. Well, let's not spend too much time on the Tour Down Under. As much as we love Australia, y'all know the difference between a French kiss and an Australian kiss. That's kids. That is not even a R-rated joke. Cannot finish that joke on the MOVE podcast. Maybe for members only. Another time on one of our happy hours.
Everyone's going to be Googling that one.
Yeah, give it a go. They're going to, you have a mute button there, George, when you cough.
I know.
But George and I have both been sick. It's really gotten the best of me for the last month plus. It's really, really pissing me off. I feel like I'm finally turned the corner, but anyways, let's jump into the spring classics, because before we know it, we're going to be sitting here in downtown Milan, starting Milan San Remo, and then of course running straight into Flanders and Roubaix and Liège and Amstel and all these other races. I don't think there's, from my perspective, we're going to spend some time talking about the races, but we're going to talk about the same people. And then I will say, before y'all chime in, this whole cyclocross phenomena, I didn't realize that cyclocross was so crazy in Europe. I really didn't. And I didn't realize that it was almost like a post-tour criterium where they're kind of stadiumified, right? You got to pay to get in. You have to buy a ticket. Somebody told me the other day they're packing 60,000 people into these cyclocross races.
No, not 60,000.
Okay, I'm just reporting what I heard. But and if you look at the images, and nonetheless, you got these guys duking it out, like Wout van Aert, like Van der Poel, like Pidcock. And this is what we're going to see in the classics, which is, I don't know, man, good for me.
Definitely, those three guys will be, the big favorites. They're the three of them are strong teams. I think the difference for this year's spring season, as we said in the other show, when Jumbo-Visma has considerably gotten stronger with Van Baarle, one of the main favorites for all those classics too, on the same team as Van Aert. Could be an advantage for Van Aert, could also be a real advantage for Van Baarle, to have to be like the second leader. But I still think that those three guys, and especially the two guys, Van Aert versus Van der Poel, they are arch rivals since the juniors, since they're 16, 17 years old. I've personally been privileged to witness now this crazy war against those two guys live in one of the cyclocross races. I went there in the Christmas period in Belgium, and it's incredible how tight this battle is and how small those differences are. But yet, I think they're both so good from such a young age that they've brought each other up, of course, to such a high level that it's insane. I spoke a long time with Mathieu's father, Adri, and Adri's always there with him at the cyclocrosses. And I said, tell me now. I said, because he was a really big rider. He won Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He won Flanders. He won, a bunch of really, I think even Lombardy he won. And I said, how must it feel? I said, when you were a rider, when I was a rider, we could win when everything was perfect that day. When all the pieces of the puzzle fall together, we were lucky to win. Your son and Van Aert, they win all the time. They know that, okay, we're going to start this race and we're going to win, or we're going to be first or second. What that feeling must be. Lance, you were one of the top riders of the world. So that's, that feeling, how good must that feeling be to be at the start line and say, okay, I'm ready. I'm the best. I'm going to win. That's just unbelievable.
Well, yeah, they're a little. It's a little different situation, but before I forget this, Johan, what is because of course last year we sort of followed Van der Poel and his back problems, and it kind of came and went. And what is how his? I guess the question is how is his back?
Yeah, it's there again, and it's. Actually, his brother, David Van der Poel, who's on the same team, he actually retires because of a back problem also. So what I'm really, really surprised, when you see those guys, man, those are not, it's changed so much, Lance. Those are not bike riders anymore, like a pure bike rider, who trains on his bike, the majority. Those guys are athletes, and I personally think that Van der Poel is obviously a great athlete, but Van Aert is, in my opinion, physically is a stronger athlete. The guy's just robust and going on the limit all the time, and especially around the Christmas New Year period, in these cyclocrosses. This is it's like they race 8 times in 11 days against each other on the limit.
I'm still trying to recover from the fact that George and I were not athletes.
That's not. It's no.
Johan is like, Lance. You don't understand. These guys are athletes. I'm like, what the fuck were we, like golfers? Like pickleball? Like what? We're just like we're like Pee Wee Herman? Like what?
No, but you know what I mean. Like I'll give you one example, right? And this is how cycling is now, and how everything has evolved. We always think, okay, every year it's that level is higher and higher. I spoke with one of the directors of a team today who is at a training camp there in the Alicante, Valencia area. And he says, in my opinion, the way I see it, every year, the level of the peloton goes up between 1% and 2%. Every year. And he says, if you don't follow, he speaks with riders and say, I have the best power output since 5 years. But if you have the level of 5 years ago, you're 7.5% behind.
Which is a lot.
That's a lot. And so to come back to your point of an athlete, his team is in the same hotel with Jumbo-Visma. And yesterday or 2 days ago, he went to breakfast, 8:00 in the morning, and he crossed Wout van Aert, who went to breakfast. So Van Aert is supposed to be at the training camp with the team, but he's still preparing for the World Championship cyclocross in a few weeks. And so 8:00 at breakfast, Van Aert just came back from a 1-hour run.
Jeez.
And then he does the team training with the team. And Frans Maassen told this guy the other day they were 7 hours already on the bike in January, 7 hours with the team.
Oh.
It goes to levels that, it's just more and more and more.
Well, I and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the newer nutrition plans later in the show, but I was down in Tucson about a week ago doing some bike riding, trying to catch up to George like always. But just as an example, it was January 2nd, and Matthew Riccatello, who we talk about a lot on this show, of course, part of Israel now, Israel Startup Nation. On January 2nd, he did a 7-hour training ride. And here's the thing. It was scheduled for January 1st, but the weather was terrible, so he put it off a day. this has become the new norm. This is not like, I'm sure somebody back in our day on January 2nd rode 7 hours, but they just did that on a whim just to seem crazy and say they were crazy and everybody. This is the new norm. And they're January 1st, that means you didn't have any fun on New Year's Eve either. I don't think.
And now if the weather's not good, they'll get on the trainer for 3, 4, 5 hours and do calorie deficit rides where they won't even eat and do zone 3, zone 2 the whole time. I mean, it's sort of mind boggling, the training that's going on these days. I think we had it easy compared to the guys now.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. We thought we were, of course, we weren't athletes, but, those,
hey, I want you guys to.
That was going to stay for the year.
Yeah,
Lance. These guys now, man, they're athletes.
Yeah, you have no idea. Believe me, I do not feel like an athlete. Go ahead, JB.
Oh no, this is more for our audience who maybe wanted. You brought up Wout van Aert mixing in the running while he's racing, not just off season. I know you guys probably did some in the pure off season. Can you guys elaborate on mixing up the two? Like, I think our audience, especially this time of year, running is a lot warmer than spending time on the bike. What are your thoughts on mixing up the running and cycling?
And let me just, JB, can I just add to your question? Because it's a great question. And I'm curious, is that a cycling, an hour? First of all, I run a lot. An hour long run is a long run. Like that's, you go run around the blocks for 30 minutes. You think that's long. An hour is a real run. Mm-hmm. Johan, just to piggyback onto JB's question, is that because of cyclocross worlds or is that just his training?
It's a combination, of course. Van Aert does running training now because of cyclocross, but I've heard, and he's not the only one, that it's actually part of his routine during the season. It goes further than that. Primož Roglič apparently starts his days with even during the Tour de France. Figure this, with a 20-minute jog. That's what he's using to get his body going. He relaxes.
You say during the Tour de France?
During the tour. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
We need to camp outside the hotel. We're going to get to the Grand Tours in a second. And I take back everything I said about Richie Porte back in the day, potentially winning the Ironman. I'm going to have to reassess. All these guys are running, and we know they run fast. We know how fast Pidcock and Remco run. The one name we haven't talked about, as we have alluded to the Spring Classics, is Julian Alaphilippe. How does he come back? Is obviously, he's got the team. But and he's also, it strikes me as the type of guy that likes to be part of the conversation, right? We're having this conversation about Wout and Matthew and Pidcock, all these other guys, Van Barle. We're not bringing up he's the kind of guy that's like, wait a minute, why is my name not in that conversation? My sense is he's got something to prove in 2023.
Yeah, but he came under fire from Lefebvre big time in the off season. Patrick uses his usual way of saying us. He just goes off in the media, and says, Julian Alaphilippe, he needs to up his game. He's paid as a big leader. He needs to perform. If he's not happy anymore, he's free to leave. He took it as far as that. So Alaphilippe has come back with an answer saying that he's very, very hungry for next season. And that to begin with, one of his big goals is the Tour of Flanders. I think we all remember when he was, I think it was Van der Poel and Van Aert and Alaphilippe crashed. And then Van der Poel and Van Aert sprinted it out. So I think he has a point to prove there. And listen, at some things change so fast nowadays in this cycling that before we know it, Alaphilippe will not be a factor anymore. I think he has 1 or 2 more years to do what he has to do, and that's it. But I think he'll be up there in Flanders.
So who are you thinking are the big teams for the classics? The obvious: Quick-Step, Jumbo, Ineos, and Alpecin Phoenix.
Alpecin is
the big four.
Alpecin got a lot stronger. So they got Søren Kragh Andersen, and they have Quinten Hermans, who was second in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So, but I think those are the teams. It's the same guys all the time. If you look at Jumbo-Visma, in my opinion, that's the really big team. And they have two big guns with Van Aert and Van Baarle, for Flanders and Roubaix.
Well, and throw in a Tadej Pogačar into all of these races, and if that's your wild card, I would take that.
Those are the teams right now on paper. Obviously, those are the guys that stand out. But it's interesting once we start seeing these early season races like the UAE Tour, Argentina. Then you go into the Spanish races, Tirreno Adriatico, Paris Nice. Then we get a much clearer picture of, what the classics should look like.
And of course, we're going to cover all these things. But before I do forget, because just to jump back to the Tour Down Under right quick, Johan, did I see on the calendar you and Spencer are going to do a show on that one? Did I read that right?
Show.
Yeah, so you guys are going to do it
after the Tour Down Under. We're doing a show. Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be covering more racing than ever this year.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Enrolling Spencer into a lot of these. So great.
We had to look long and hard to find somebody that was remotely as smart as Johan, and we found him. His name's Spencer Martin. Hey, before we jump into, let's talk about some of the Grand Tours. Today's show also brought to you by Athletic Greens. Look at this here, right? Got my AG1 travel pack. I do not leave home without it. This is something I use religiously, as does, I think, probably everybody on this show. If you want better gut health, more energy, you're not a big fan of taking pills and vitamins like yours truly, and you want just a daily supplement, this is the stuff. 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, all for less than $3 a day. It's a game changer. Everybody says it. Everybody talks about it. All the smart kids. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with this convenient daily nutrition. Let's make it easy. Head on over to athleticgreens.com/themove. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/themove. You get a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. Also today, brought to you by HVMN. We're going to talk about nutrition at the end of the show. This has become a key part of the Peloton's nutrition plan. Whether people talk about it much anymore, but it is still a mainstay in the Peloton. HVMN has revolutionized the ketone game. They came along with Ketone IQ, which is more effective, cheaper, and tastes better. And the other cool thing that I've experienced with using Ketone IQ is it's obviously you have the physical benefits, but I think the one that we don't touch on enough is really the mental benefits. It is, you will absolutely notice a difference. Ketone IQ can cross the blood-brain barrier. Just cool. I think you should play around with it. As I said, most of the Peloton, whether they talk about it or not, is actively using Ketone IQ. So head on over to hvmn.com. Use the promo code THEMOVE20, the move 20. That's 20% off at hvmn.com. All right. What about those 3-week races? You on?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we more or less know already which of the Grand Tour riders will focus on which races. I think the big question mark was Remco. What would Remco do after his Tour of Spain victory, and what would Roglic do? And I think we got the answer. They both focus on the Giro, together with Geraint Thomas. Geraint Thomas has announced that it probably be his last year of racing. And focuses on the Giro, which I think it's a good thing for him. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see Evenepoel and Roglic go head to head. The Giro is an interesting course. Quite a bit of time trialing, one of which is uphill time trial, very hard. But it's going to be interesting to see if Remco Evenepoel can confirm. I mean, I have no doubt he can.
I think I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
at a race like the Tour of Italy, I think the true we all agree the true confirmation whenever that moment comes will be at the Tour de France. But I think in a race like the Giro, I think he can confirm that.
Not only that, but it's going to be. I'm very excited about basically the continuation of the Vuelta battle that was brewing last year, and unfortunately, we lost Roglic to that really nasty crash. But the way he was improving on a daily basis, his aggression throughout the race, if we can see that sort of battle in the Giro this year, it's just going to be fireworks, and I'm very excited to watch that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see, that Jumbo-Visma allows Roglic to focus on the Giro and basically goes with one leader to the Tour. It's a risk, in my opinion. Vingegaard won the Tour de France. He was second the year before, and he was the only rider the year before who could, on some moment, drop Pogačar on the Mont Ventoux. We all remember. But still, they're going in as the favorite in the Tour de France, and having Roglic going full gas for the Giro doesn't. I personally think Roglic will probably not do the Tour de France. He will do the Giro and the Vuelta. So that's gonna be interesting to see there what Vingegaard, how he will respond to that unique leadership. He came into the Tour de France as the second of last year, but still sharing leadership and responsibility and pressure with Roglic. So I think for him, this is a whole new world now, and that's a little bit I have no doubt about his, qualities and the way he can perform. It's amazing. He's up there with Pogačar, but that's going to be a different role. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can deal with the pressure and being the star of the Tour, because he's going to have number one on his back, and it's a whole different race for him.
But at the same time, if you have Roglic doing the Giro, let's say he has a good Giro, has a month off. For me as a team director, I would want Roglic at the Tour de France. Not only does it take some of the pressure off being the guru, it can give them some liberty in terms of who guys like Roglic going into the move, making UAE and the Ineos do much more work. Like, you got to bring him, I think. And it'd be fun to have him there with a sort of a non-leadership role to see how well he does.
Yeah.
And hopefully stay upright.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, already, if you look at the level of Roglic in last year's Vuelta, and how ill-prepared he came, after that crash in the Tour de France, and there was doubts until 1 week before the Tour of Spain whether he could race or not. And he started off, won a stage, but then fell back a little bit. And the way he came back, of course, he can do the Giro and the Tour.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It could be one of those things where, because he has had so much, at least it feels like, and I'm sure he feels it himself, that just a lot of pressure. You're getting up there in the years. You've had a couple close calls. You had 1 year, which was totally unexpected and devastating. I don't know. Yeah, just say I'm gonna focus on the Giro, throw him in the Tour. Maybe the kind of thing that, who knows? That's the perfect balance.
Yeah. Well, I still think, Lance, that if Roglic goes full gas for the Giro, he will not be at the level of Pogačar and Vingegaard. And those two guys preparing exclusively for the Tour. Exclusively Vingegaard, but one thing I wanted to say about Pogačar, for example, he wants to win the Tour de France again. He feels like last year's second place is a defeat, which I think is normal. If you win it twice.
Well, God, I would hope he thinks it was a defeat. Of course,
but I do have my doubts about the way he structures his season. It's obviously a guy who likes to race, likes to win. This insistence on doing the Tour of Flanders, it's great for us fans, but it does not fit into the schedule of a guy who wants to win the Tour de France. Combine that with the obligation for him and the pressure he has to be at the start of the Tour of UAE, and he has to win it. That's as early, really early. I could understand if he does that and then skips the classics and prepares for the Tour, but going for that, then the classics, because he will want to do Liège-Bastogne-Liège too, and then go for the Tour again. That's 3 times. You have to be there.
Let's not forget, Johan, we're talking about cycling in 2023. We have guys like Van der Poel, Van Aert doing cyclocross in December, January, full gas. Classics, full gas, Grand Tours, like we always say every year, they just keep rewriting the playbook. And
I agree.
I think there's no exception there with Pogačar.
I agree, but it does catch up with them at some point.
How much
Go ahead, JB.
Yeah, how much does that come into play? Like if you're the Grand Tour favorite, mixing it up in Flanders, especially wet conditions, your risk of breaking something.
Of course.
That has to be. Why are they not factoring that in? If you're a Grand Tour champion and the favorite, should you be mixing it up on the cobblestones?
Mind you, we haven't seen a wet Tour Flanders in many, many years.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I mean, there was, in the old days, there were 3 things in the world that were certain, right? Death, taxes, and rain at Flanders and rain at Roubaix. It has been many, many years since we've seen that. So, it could be a game time decision. If you got to drive Flanders, it's still a very, very dangerous race with all the road furniture and traffic furniture, but listen, just an intense race.
Hats off to him that he wants to do these races, and he's actually really good at it. Last year he was the best rider in the race. I mean, Mathieu van der Poel could stay with him, but I think he will agree that Pogačar was stronger than him. I mean, it would be amazing to see a guy win the Tour of Flanders and then win the Tour de France. That would be crazy. I mean, this is Eddy Merckx era, then those guys were riding all the races, but everybody was doing the same thing.
Yeah, not only that, he had a strong team for Flanders, but he didn't have a total classics team for Flanders where you have 3, 4, 5 guys like Quick-Step bring in their leader to the front in the dangerous sections. We saw him a lot of the times alone with one other guy, which I know from personal experience is a very tough task in Flanders, and you have to be very, very good mentally and super good technically to be able to ride in the front of Tour of Flanders, save energy, and make it to the final like he did last year.
Yeah.
Look, this will be fun to talk about. We're going to be doing this podcast for a long time. We are going to look back on these kids' careers and look, maybe they can sustain it, and more power to them if they can. This might be a conversation we have in 6 or 7 or 8 years where we're talking about a whole new crop of people, and we're having to say, hey, they had 5 great years and they pushed it that hard, and you just can't sustain it. I don't know. I'm not predicting that, but that may be, again, we just keep talking about quote unquote new norms. That's may be the new norm. Like you get in and you get out,
and peaking earlier.
Yeah. Peaking much younger, training a hell of a lot harder, racing a hell of a lot more and a lot more intense. Make that paper, get the bag. Okay. And then boom.
No.
I'll apply you. All right.
Yeah. Now, speaking of, for example, a guy like he just announced today, I guess, on the team presentation, Thibaut Pinot. We were talking about Thibaut Pinot as this young promise. He was second in the Tour, and he's retiring already. He's 31, 32. That this is one of the guys, for example, who came into cycling and is still one of those riders who, in my opinion, came in the traditional way, like not so scientific. And these guys see that they can't keep up. They can't keep up with them.
Right. In fact, there was an article. We are not going to talk about Thibaut Pinot on this podcast.
There was an article today about how, they're all wearing the wearable devices now, where every single thing that they eat, that they expend in their workout throughout the day is measured, and just their whole lives are being tracked right now. And it's a completely different world from what we were used to.
Now, on with regards to the Tour, I see here in the notes, and we have to talk about these 2 names. Both are, I think, newsworthy and sort of curious cases. But Egan Bernal, what happens to him? Can he come back from just a hellacious crash?
Yeah.
And then Richard Carapaz, who has left the mothership and gone, talk about taking the paper, gone to EF, Education First. Both obviously a bigger question mark in and around Bernal just because of the crash, and we haven't really seen much. But I'm also really curious, and I have thoughts, surprisingly enough, about Carapaz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no doubt. Bernal's been posting monster rides in Colombia. It looks like his pre-season training has gone really well.
By the way, birthday boy today. It's a happy birthday to Egan Bernal. 26 years old, only 26. We're talking 26. Already about him as an established. He won the Tour. He won the Giro. only 26, had a whole year out basically last year, right?
And let's not forget the comebacks that Van Aert just went through, Remco Evenepoel. A lot of these top guys have been beat down lately in the last 2 years and have made it back to the top. I'm not sure this
is a different kind of crash. I think.
Different kind of crash for sure.
This was a Chris Froome-esque crash in training.
I think worse, Lance, worse. It was life-threatening at some point, you know?
And okay, that's sucks to hear. Younger guy, you know, we all, you know, you got a little more Gumby in you when you're 25 versus 35. Yeah. It'll be fun to look. I hope so. I mean, well, you throw in a resurgent Egan Bernal with Vingegaard and Pogačar. Fuck yeah. Let's just, where do you want me to light the fireworks? Let's go.
You know, the question is, you know, and we're talking about the way this peloton is constantly changing and upping their game. He won the Tour in 2019, right? Yeah. So this is already 4 years later. Is his level of 2019, is that still good enough to win the Tour in 2023? That's the question, you know, because if you're those 2 or 3 or 4% less, you're not winning. You're 5-6 minutes behind.
Well, he's won the Giro as well, so I think if anybody can do it, he's got the team behind him. Arguably the best team in the world for, you know, in terms of training, nutrition, rehabilitation from serious injuries. So he's got a lot of the cards on his side. Let's just say
it's a good chance to
and the only leader of the team in the Tour also, which is also important.
That's right. Yep. It's their only choice.
This is a good chance to promote that we've got the Up and Comers show. If you didn't catch that last year, but what a game changer for how you view the season. Mm-hmm. We talk about how they're peaking so early. The new talent is younger. They're top of their game at 2021. So we'll have that
even younger
show.
Even younger. So
you don't want to miss that.
No. And so Johan, I hope you got some. I'm assuming you've identified some up and comers.
I have my list already. Yeah.
Of course.
I do too. It's when I look over your shoulder and look at your list, that's my list.
Same.
I want to get everybody's thoughts on Carapaz, and I don't fault the kid for, looking around and taking a big offer. I am not optimistic here for him. And I've said it all along. And we've seen it happen. You've seen when people leave a really smart, sophisticated, well-funded program like Ineos to go elsewhere to what are essentially junior teams. I'm very curious, and
George, what do you think?
I wouldn't say it was a junior team. I mean, they have some of the best riders in the world. They have past Flanders winners. They have Rigoberto Urán. I feel like they have and I know, you're going to start hating, but they have a South American vibe, perhaps, a much more comfortable atmosphere for Carapaz to shine. I don't know. I like the move. I think he's going to do well there.
But are they athletes?
Are they athletes?
Definitely athletes.
I think we've seen for the Tour de France. We've seen the best Carapaz in 2021 when he was third. I think that's his maximum. There's no way he's going to get anywhere closer to Vingegaard and Pogačar, and even Bernal is going to be better. So I would put him, if we talk about those four guys, I'll put him in fourth place. And he hasn't shown, I mean, unless he can take advantage of a tactical move, but we don't.
They're not going to let him do that.
We don't see those things anymore nowadays. So I don't see him. I mean, getting on the podium on the third spot would be for Carapaz like a victory.
Oh, I agree, and I would be shocked.
Yeah,
it's hard to get third in the Tour de France.
I mean, listen, he was.
I did it once.
He did not win the Giro, and the field was not very strong in the Giro, and he couldn't win. He was definitely not as strong as when he won the Giro. He lost to Jay Hindley. All respect for Jay Hindley, but if we talk about the Tour de France and we name 5 guys, Jay Hindley's not in those 5, and he could not beat him at the Giro. So I think Carapaz is.
I take Jay Hindley over Richard Carapaz every time.
Hey, give me some of these. Help me out with this and help everybody out listening. Give us an example, aside from teammates helping you through a Grand Tour. What are some of those other marginal gains that you get in an Ineos that you don't get with a team that doesn't have that budget? Can you give us some examples of just the day in, day out, or what are the biggest differentiators?
And they essentially don't have a budget. They have more staff than any. Well, now next to Jumbo and probably UAE, similar, but they probably have more staff than any team in the Pro Tour, overlooking everything, not only just nutrition, training, but the best way to travel, the best way for the riders to recover at night in their hotel rooms. Every little piece is measured on that team. Everything. And they've been leading the charge in that.
Yeah, JB, every touch point is maximized. Like it's we thought we ran a really professional program, but this is such, again, it's the new normal, at least in especially if you have the budget.
And it has to do with the budget a lot. I mean, these, of course, people. I mean, and JB, if you talk about the Tour de France, for example, because it is the most important race. One thing is having the means and the resources, but then you also have, the Tour de France, they don't like to see that, a team that comes with, because they cater for, let's say, 30, back in the days, it was 26, maybe it's 35 people, right? And everything on top of that, but nowadays, teams, they go with 60 people, because they have so many other people. And so you have to find place for those people. First of all, the hotels are limited in certain places, and logistically, this costs a lot of money. And there's 2 or 3 teams who can allow themselves to do that. Other teams, they can't, because budgets are tight. And I think, even if Yves Carapaz went to EF, I don't think he went for a bigger paycheck. I can't imagine that Ineos has let him go for money. Even then, the EF has a limited budget, so they will be on the back.
Well, then it really makes no sense. But let's not go down this road. Let's actually let the road decide how this plays out. I'm curious. We'd be fools if we didn't if we talked about the Tour de France and we didn't talk about Annemiek van Vleuten, who, in my view, and I think we all share the same, was men, women, children, doesn't matter, for 2022 was hands down the rider of the year. Nobody even close. She was that dominant. Yeah. Of course, is this then the question? Is, as she I think has stated, is this her last season truly? And can she keep it up? And I think probably most people say, yeah. She knows one way to train, one way to race, and she
seems to be following the same path as last year. I've been stalking her Instagram. She's in Colombia at my buddy's hotel and right outside of Pereira, a coffee region in Colombia. It's incredible riding there. She just rode Las Letras, which is an 80-kilometer climb, the longest climb in the world. So
in one day.
In one day, her training is on track.
Break it up. It'd be a JB and I'd be doing a stage race up that thing.
That's on my list. I want to do that climb.
Yeah, that was very brave of you to talk about how you stalk people on Instagram, George.
Hey, I'm doing it's research for the show.
Exactly.
Well, we can't move on from Grand Tours without talking about the possibility of Cavendish, breaking the Tour de France win record. Right. So, and he's been a great subject to talk about for some time. Has not announced it as of this recording. Has still not announced where he's going to be, but we sure can speculate.
Well, all the rumors, and maybe they're more than rumors, point to Team Astana. So, of course, Johan, you myself have a lot of experience there with that crew. But look, he just get him on a team, get him in the race. We've had a lot of talks with Mark personally. He wants to break that record, right? He's
Lance. He's going. He says he's going to break it.
I don't want to,
that's what he says.
Great. So, but you got to have a team. So, it sounds like that's been taken care of. It'll reveal itself.
It's Astana. No more speculation. He was at the training camp. He's on a wheelier bike. I don't know the reason why they haven't announced it, but I don't think it's the greatest team for him because they have zero experience with sprinters, but at the same time, they also have no leader for the Tour de France. So, having him as the leader and putting the whole team behind him, he doesn't need that much help as long as he has people around him, and they don't have a train. That's for sure. So that's going to be a change. They don't have a lead out train.
And the biggest thing, which always helped our friend over there in Aspen, was just being angry that he didn't have all the offers that he should have had. And it's really going to help him light the fire for this year's season, I believe.
Is he talking about me?
Yep.
Golly, that was a long time ago, my friend. I'm a much more balanced and mellow guy now.
On a good day.
You're talking often about the politics of cycling, especially when you're a favorite. Will Cavendish be able to find some allies in the peloton to get the help he needs?
Those days are gone, JB.
I was going to say yes. That's too bad.
Those days are gone. I mean, it's everybody for themselves.
I know, but
directors don't speak with each other anymore. They don't make no agreements in the race before. If you pull now, then we're going to help you in 2 days and stuff like that. That's over. That's done. So
the only allies for help that he'll get is, the respect that he's sort of generated from his career, that, perhaps maybe somebody won't elbow him or give him the wheel that he's fighting for a little bit easier than another rider. But other than that, there will not be any other help besides that. I
mean, George, allies are going to be other teams with a sprinter.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be up to him to get the good wheel. I mean, they do reportedly they did also get Cees Bol on board, which was one of the guys who was initially also going to that B&B team to be together with Cavendish. So both of them go to Astana. So obviously he will be the lead out man, and maybe they'll find another guys that have not been doing the job, but that have the speed to do it. We'll see. I think the most important is that he has a World Tour team and that he's going to be at the start of the Tour de France.
Yeah. Well, Johan, I know you got to go. Let's touch on a couple more things before we get out of here. And you, Johan, you of course been a great friend to him and communicate quite a bit with Alan Piper, who's been really I think really the genius behind Tadej Pogacar's. Obviously, there's a lot of smart people around him, but I think Alan Piper has been a real force of good for him. So hearing his health is back, he'll be back in the peloton, or at least back, involved in the team and involved in Pogacar's season. That's just fucking amazing news. So Alan, welcome back, brother.
That's good. Great for him, but I think it's great for Pogacar.
Of course.
I think he was there the first 2 years, especially the first year, and the second year a little bit more from a distance. Last year he was not involved. Look what happened. I think Alan is a guy who has a certain relation with Pogacar, and Pogacar listens to his advice and takes it on board. I think the days that a director was dictating what was going to happen are gone. Everybody has their word to say. But I think for Pogacar, having Alan back is a great advantage for the Tour de France again.
And then I just wanted to, we mentioned a few times talking about nutrition. I heard this thing the other day about, because we sort of follow it, like something has changed, like the training load, the race load, the intensity load. And we can talk about ketones and all these other things. But I heard the other day that, and this comes from a good source, that almost everybody now, especially in races, is they are just essentially carbohydrate packing. Like they are consuming, and I want to make it very clear. Don't confuse carbohydrates with calories, right? But what I'm hearing is that in the races from the gun, they're consuming 100 grams of carbohydrates. I'm not a nutritionist, but that's a lot of carbohydrates from the start per hour. Not 100 calories, 100 grams of carbohydrates. That is an astronomical amount of carbs. And, my first question is how can the gut absorb that? That would take so much. You would have to practice this in training. Like this is just the kind of stuff. I mean, we would go, George, we'd go out on 5, 6, 7-hour training rides, have 4 bottles, a couple few gels.
You'd get mad at us if you saw us eating a cake before an hour and a half into the race in the Tour de France. Why are you eating so much? Like in the middle of the tour.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, for sure. These guys, it's totally different now. Like you said, they're training this sort of, technique where they're being able to absorb more calories than you normally should. They're training that.
Well, and it's monitored, right? I mean, everything's measured with those devices, those wearables, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They know exactly what they need at which time. And, we don't see these bonking situations anymore that somebody runs completely out of energy. Everybody has a nutrition plan. I mean, even for a cyclocross, 1 hour effort, they have a nutrition plan and they're taking gels in that hour. I mean, it's like, well, back in the days, I guess, if it was an hour time trial, we'd also do that, right, Lance? Like a gel in the middle of a long time trial or something like that.
Or stop for a baguette. I don't know. I wasn't an athlete. I probably stopped for a beer, had a cigarette. I don't fucking know. I mean, I was just cruising around like Pee Wee Herman in France. JB, I'm going to give you the last word because I know you're trying to say something there.
No. The stacking carbs throughout it, that probably affects your recovery too. You're not finishing with an empty tank every day. Is that a big part of it?
You said it right. Think about it is a fuel tank, like your fuel gauge, right? And so I'm just basing this off of what I've heard. And yeah, you can, in terms of energy in the race, but also you're just not emptying that tank every day, because a lot of times that tank gets down into the red and then all of a sudden it's empty. And then you're pulling from all these different sources within the body. And then your recovery is really in trouble. So I thought it was awesome. I mean, I don't want to go out and try it. I think it would take some training to gear up to be ready for that, but that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Next up, we have the up and comers coming soon. So when are we doing that, JB? Next week?
Yeah. It's right around the corner.
Next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next week. All right. We'll drop that next week. Johan, you got your show with Spencer.
Yeah. You don't want to miss the up and comer show. That was one of my favorites from last year. And it just gives you more insight to all the names that we're dropping in the Peloton. Really, really good stuff. Another little bit of business too is join us in Merced, California for the Hincapie Gravel Fondo on March 18th.
Right around the corner, March 18th.
If those roads haven't been washed out yet.
Correct. Yeah, they're going through some serious flooding right now.
I was just in the north, just in the Bay Area. It was biblical rain.
Yeah.
But all right, we'll see you all next week for the up and comers. And thanks for tuning in. We're looking forward to 2023. I think we laid it out. Like there's so many, not so much questions, but so many interesting things to watch. So we're excited. We'll see y'all next week.
Okay. Ciao.
Ciao.